In case you're just joining us, we're taking a look at the latest covered in the papers, news-making headlines, what you can expect as you grab your copy of Kenya's bull newspaper, The Standard. Joining me in studio to help us deliberate on these matters and more, Joseph Kioko, political analyst. Thanks for your time. Let's continue with this. Of course, I mentioned or hinted a special report on page 10, where the poor rains have actually left maize farmers counting losses, and the country is at risk of starvation, where farmers now cannot do top dressing and fall armyworms are multiplying by their numbers in this particular kind of weather. I don't know, this is natural elements. The rain definitely can't be predicted that precisely, but what say you about their plight right now? First,
without specifically going into the rift and our food basket region in Kenya, is to generally look into agriculture, the concept of agriculture in Kenya and how we are going about it as a country, and why we might be missing certain key milestones. One, there is no country that has developed its agriculture based on rain. What has happened is that rainfall prediction on account of climate change, the rainfall patterns have been changing. So you find a farmer who was waiting for rain to come this period, like the ones that is stated in Rift Valley, when the rain fails to come, then all the predictions, all the planning that has gone goes to waste. So we need to look at mechanized or a different approach, which is irrigation-based farming in Kenya, as opposed to rain-based farming in Kenya. Now, an irrigation approach, what it does is that you can be able to plan around what you anticipate in terms of yield per acreage and yield per crop, because it is a mechanized approach to farming. Okay. This traditional model is going to keep hurting us on account of climate change. Now, we can rely so much on a meteorological department, but they're looking at forecast for the last 10 years to predict that today it will rain, tomorrow it won't rain, based on the patterns of 10 to 15 years ago. That's why they do the weather forecasting. But we must appreciate the role of climate change that is happening and the erratic rain patterns that are coming. In Ukambani, where I come from, Kaiti, when the early rains came, there was a lot of excitement. And then it hasn't rained for a while. And people who planted and thought that they'll harvest bumper, they'll have a bumper harvest, are suffering as it is today. So it's not in the North Rift. But again, it is this rain-based agriculture which has no future in terms of going forward. Look at Egypt, a country which is a desert, but still is able to do a mechanized agriculture and produce and sustain itself. Look at Israel, for example, who have brought in issues of modern irrigation schemes that help them plant and harvest and feed their people. So, and this is a fourth pillar in President Uhuru Kenyatta's fourth Big Four agenda, in terms of food security. Yes. Now, food security needs a move from the traditional approach based agriculture to a modern, scientific, result-based approach to agriculture. So I hear the feelings of the people in North Rift, our food basket areas, but the conversation needs to step up. Is how can the government assist this shift from the traditional-based to the modern mechanized-based approach? Exactly. How can the government help, especially with the high operational costs? A farmer is here quoted saying a bag of fertilizer is going for 3,400 and I bought 50 of them. The cost of diesel has gone up and there's no government subsidies. That would have really helped. But of course, more details in that particular special report on page 10 of The Standard. I'd like us to shift focus to perhaps something that's a little bit more political. Page 16. Political parties' mischief and why you should get involved. When you're faced with the challenge of recruiting and keeping members, parties have resorted to cheating in order to be seen to comply. And all this has to do with the Political Parties Act 2011, which spells out, is it a cocktail of conditions that parties should actually pursue in order to be registered. And in pursuit of that national outlook, this is where the trouble comes. At least 1,000 registered members from at least
24 counties. Beyond this, you must also have active and functional physical offices in those particular counties. Kyoko, let's bounce off what happened recently where notable individuals, including Kenyans alike, once they searched their names, they found they belonged to certain parties even without having applied. And the funny thing, the office of the Register of Political Parties told Kenyans to resign from these parties. How do you resign, yet you never submitted your name?
I mean, that's the height of hypocrisy, really, and contempt. You are shifting the ball back to me. I didn't apply. I have been known to expose, like now, Raila Jr. He is his dad's son. So he did not go to ANC or whatever party that is. By birth, he is ODM, Damu, and everything. So when you tell him to resign, you're just really irritating him and irritating all Kenyans. But beyond that semantics, I think the Register of Political Parties is being extremely casual in this process. They are just saying, you register as many people. We know what political parties are doing or what the people on the ground are doing. They're moving into M-Pesa shops and they pick details of people. I think it would have been important because this is electronic voting. There should have been a portal or a way in which when your details are picked, you have an option of opting in or opting out before your name is finally updated into the register of the political parties, so that a party can submit 1 million names gotten from whichever means. Let's assume, because we can't regulate how they're getting them. We of course, we put in the guidelines, we say you must do this and this, but ultimately we will not police them to that minute detail. But the way of ensuring that my name as Joseph Kyoko is entered is I should have the opportunity of being asked by SMS in truthfulness, because it's technology-based, and Safaricom or whatever platform providers that are there can be able to reach to us with our unique identification numbers. So that at the end of the day, before I am uploaded into a register of a political party, I have been given the opportunity to either accept or not. So that at that particular point, if I say no, then that name is struck off from that party's register. If I say yes, then for sure, I am there. That is the thing that the register needed to have done. Work together with the ICT departments in government. And again, the Register of Political Parties, or the Office of the Register of Political Parties, is funded by taxpayers. And they have the duty of allocating funds to political parties. Because this is a program that is set to affect all parties, they could have sat with the directors, executive directors of the political parties, and retained a certain portion of the monies that are going, of the funds that are going to political parties for this particular exercise of registration and verification of the signatures or the names that are going there. I think that is where the rain starts beating. Otherwise, you finish this exercise, you tell a Wiper party to go register itself, it will pick all the names that of Canberra leaning. So that Musyoka will be there, Kyoko will be there, Mutua will be there. But again, give Mutua the opportunity to say, yes, I am a member of Wiper, or no, I am not a member of Wiper. That is what the Register of Political Party must move to do.
But what can they do? I get they are the ultimate custodian in one way or the other, but they cannot follow up every name it receives from a political party and make sure it's valid, you know? So it's a challenge, right?
It is. I mean, it's the same thing like there's a voter registration exercise that IEBC is currently conducting. And after the voter registration, there is a voter verification exercise that happens. So yes, political parties are doing their member registration as it is now. The funds must be allocated. Funds must be allocated to the Register of Political Parties to undertake a membership verification exercise, either by method of SMS, and it must go throughout. Because this Register of Political Parties is what is used in getting members to participate in the nomination exercise. It is what is used to ensure that the person nominated to be a member of parliament is actually a member of party XYZ and not a member of party ABC. So the need to verify, and it even goes into the conversations of BBI. Part of the things that were challenged in the BBI appeal, that yes, voter signatures were availed, but what did IEBC do to verify authenticity of these signatures? Now, that is the same question that the Register of Political Parties is facing today. It is not about collections. Collections we might not be able to master, or we might not be able to regulate as it is. But verification must be a core component, and the Register of Political Parties must be funded to be able to ensure that Joseph Kioko is a member of Wiper and not a member of Jubilee.
Well, that's interesting. Let's talk about political parties now. And of course, due to the Political Parties Act 2011, they have to meet a couple of requirements, some leading to perhaps cutting corners due to the members and the registration in these particular parties. But the finance part is usually a challenge. To comply with some of these rules, you have to have physical offices in a couple of areas, at least 24 counties, if I'm not wrong, and only Jubilee Party and ODM get funds from the political parties fund. Yet we have like 72 registered parties in the country compared to a paltry 26 in Uganda and 22 in Tanzania. What does that say to you, the political landscape and perhaps the urge, the need to form political parties?
The process of registering political parties was by law made to stifle briefcast political parties. Yeah. But again, people are conniving so that you find a party is created, and again, like I've said, using of membership of M-Pesa roles and details to do all of that. You find parties creating an office. It's supposed to be in 25 counties. So you go, you get a particular party's office, which is next door to a bar or a very small cubicle, because it's not defined what kind of an office that should be there. So people are finding ways of beating the requirements as it is. But the ultimate test is in terms of how people vote. So, of course, you have 70 registered parties, but the active political parties in the arena are less than 5 political parties. Wiper, ODM, Ford Kenya, ANC, Jubilee. Less than 5, really. The others are fringe. Of course, they exist on paper, but they do not have followership, or even if they have followership, it's less than 2 or 3 MPs, less than 10 MCS. You know, very fringe thing. Now, the political parties, the register of political parties, and even in the funding of political parties, because that funding of political parties is what is natural progression, is to say this party got this number of votes in the election process, it got this number of MPs, it therefore qualifies to be funded by the exchequer, so that it keeps growing its base, and the others will come fold. And again, in case the leader leaves, because of the funding by the exchequer, then the party has continuity beyond the individual self of the party leader. Now, these were the ideals that have been there, but the reality is different. Look at ODM in the last 5 years. It got funding based on the total votes that it got. Yet these votes were an effort of a combination of Wiper, was a combination of ANC, was a combination of Ford Kenya. Yeah. It was not a unique effort of ODM. Yeah. So when all the funds are sent there, and parties like Wiper are not given, parties, all these other constituent coalition partners are not funded, basically you are stifling even the conversation that was originally meant to be a good one. You go to Jubilee, there is no conflict in Jubilee, because those parties that were folded, I think they were paid off, if you listen to pronouncements that were made by the late Honorable Kalembe. So Jubilee, by right, is getting Jubilee, but the constituent parties of NASA are suffering, and that is one of the key problems when you hear the Honorable Stephen Kalonzo talk about it and say that there is deficiency of trust. Yes. Is because when ODM got money, it sends its young people to go out and abuse leadership of the different parties, and parties have been stifled of their rightfully owned money. Now that that is over, or that is ongoing, you want again us to come back and do a kumbaya, ignore the past, and join together. I think that is the conversation that is hurting the rebirth of the NASA coalition.
And we'll get to speak at length about the NASA coalition and the prospects of coming close and coming back together following the sentiments by Charity Ngilu. If they don't unite, the wheelbarrow will carry the day. We'll get to talk about that, but I want to ask you this. Do you think the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is out of order in terms of declaring the government will freeze pay increase or pay reviews for public servants, including teachers who perhaps might have negotiated a CBA through the unions and were expecting this in the next 2 years. What side of the fence do you sit on this?
When the new constitution was brought up and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission was placed, it was meant to be an independent body that would advise the government on matters salaries and on matters on CBA's arrangements that were going on. Now, this communication that they gave out, and you must understand, see the contradictions that exist. Some times ago, before BBI was viable, CRC said you cannot give car grants or car loans to MCAs. When President Uhuru went to Sagana and made a political pronouncement that this matter of car grants needs to happen, the CRC quickly, within 2 weeks, said, yes, it can happen. So there was the professional advice they had given about and then there's a new political reality that happened. On this particular case of civil servant, this is a conditionality by IMF. On the monies that we are getting by IMF, this has been placed as a condition that you freeze salary increments for the next 2 years so that public expenditure or public wage bill is contained at a certain level. That is the pronouncement they are making. Reality on the ground, because of a pressure that will come up, will mean something else totally different. So in them wading into political conversations without backed by facts and figures, it reduces what was supposed to be a very independent commission that was going to regulate salaries of MPs, it was going to regulate salaries of public servants, so that it reduces the wage inequality between the highest paid workers and the lowest paid workers. However, because of political realities of the day, you find them being played either or. I think it's a little bit misfortune.
Okay, we'll definitely see how it transpires. More details on page 20 of the Standard. Even as we take a short break, just make sure you grab yourself a copy of Kenya's Bold newspaper. We've definitely taken a look at just some of the stories you should expect in today's edition of the Standard. We'll definitely keep you updated on any other developments. Even as we come back from this particular break, we'll try and take a look at the BBI profile, what to expect as of tomorrow, even as the proponents go to the appeal court to challenge that ruling by the 5-judge bench of the High Court in terms of declaring the BBI process unconstitutional. Not just that, a lot of